What happens when law, business, and life collide? Each week on Lead Counsel, your host Tom Tona will take a deep dive into topics related to the law, the business of law, and life. There will be insightful discussions with industry insiders, experts, and thought leaders making significant contributions and meaningful differences in their fields of expertise. Tom is the founder and managing attorney at TonaLaw. He has been a practicing attorney since 1994 and the leader of TonaLaw since it opened in 2001. The goal of this podcast is to provide you with free information on law and the business of law, and to give you actionable tools related to each of these areas. Now, here's Tom.
All right. Hello. Welcome back to the Lead Counsel podcast. This is Tom Tona. I'm here with Juliet Accomando. Jules, what's going on?
Hi, guys.
And I have a special guest today, Jules.
Oh, I know. She's so special.
She's very special. Today, we are bringing you Alesha Nadeem. Alesha is the HR generalist at our law firm. And I had the thought that we would do a multi-part series on building a rock star team from the ground up. And Alesha's been instrumental in doing that. And while I don't go into a huge background on most guests, I want to cover Alesha's background, because if anybody's at the point where they're going to be adding an HR person to their firm, you want to find yourself an Alesha. So Alesha, welcome. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for having me.
All right. So Alesha, we're just going to jump right in. You came in among a series of applicants for the HR generalist role, right? So one, why don't you tell us what an HR generalist is and what they do?
They handle the basics of recruiting, onboarding, development. They handle payroll as well. And you can go in depth, and they can be part of the management team and handle pretty much all the ins and outs of HR.
So let's just dive a little deeper, right? Because I put you on the spot right away, and I want to get you loose for the upcoming podcast. But we hit the point, and again, just to give you a little background on our trajectory, I was at 10 employees, 10 team members at the time, and my stress level was through the roof. And I heard a webinar from Atticus where they said anything more than 7, you need an office manager.
Okay.
So I looked around, and I then brought on my office manager, who was Janira. She was basically running everything anyway, but she then was elevated to office management. Then we crossed into 25 people, and my stress level was through the roof again, and Janira's was through the roof, and we were spread way too thin. And that was when we decided, we need somebody for HR, right? And even though I had become what I think is very advanced in my understanding of HR through training with my coach over the last 10 years, because I hated doing it in the beginning, that's where we developed the position for an HR generalist. And by the luck of the gods, we found you. So the way I break down HR now, and you tell me if I'm missing anything, is I break it down into the following, and this is what I'm hoping to do as a series: recruiting, onboarding, development and training, ongoing evaluation, diversity, equity, and inclusion, advancement/removal. Compensation is its own beast unto itself. We have a whole system for that. And then the overarching concept of culture, right? Shared core values. And then how do you create the culture, maintain the culture, live the culture, protect the culture, right? Did I miss anything with that?
No, I think that's pretty much everything.
Okay. So at the point that we were at, what I was able to pinpoint in the trajectory of HR levels was I wanted a generalist, somebody that would have their hand in all of these things. Your resume fit the bill perfectly. You had a very heavy emphasis in your prior life as a recruiter. So I'm hoping that all of the podcast episodes kind of add up to a series based around those themes of 7 or 8 topics that will break down into like hour-long bites. So give us a little bit of background. What made you choose HR, and what your degree was in, and your prior job experience?
Yeah, so I graduated from Stony Brook in 2019 with a health science degree. I started off in healthcare management, so I was managing a few urgent cares. And during my time at the urgent care I was working for, I worked a lot with the HR business partner. And, I really liked her work. And I also was handling a lot of HR responsibilities in my day-to-day. So I figured, It fits my personality. It's something I'm interested in. So I think it's best if I venture into the HR field, which then led me to recruiting at Robert Half, which I enjoyed, but I knew I didn't want that to be my end all when it came to HR, which pretty much led me to where I am now here at TonaLaw.
Awesome. And I'm so glad that you did. Talk a little bit about the healthcare space and how it's different from what we're doing now in terms of the HR that you were working on.
Okay. So working in healthcare management, it is a lot. What I was doing specifically, it is a lot more operations heavy. So just managing the day-to-day of a healthcare facility. But in my work that was related to HR, it was training, employee relations, very employee relations heavy, a little bit of recruiting, not necessarily to the point where I was actually looking for candidates. It was more like interviewing for them as well. That was pretty much my experience with HR in a healthcare facility.
Okay. Let's talk real quick too, because you touched on it, because you said how much you loved HR.
Yeah.
Talk about your disc, because I talk about it a lot on this platform and just in general with people as a business owner. Talk about your disc and why it's so perfect for HR.
Yeah. So my disc is a high I and S. So that means I am a very big people person and I'm sympathetic, if I'm correct.
Empathetic, yep.
Empathetic.
Yep.
So that actually does fit well for someone in an HR role because this individual is able to communicate with different individuals and not feel overwhelmed with the communication part of my role.
Yep, you're also, from what I've observed, very diplomatic, right? You're great with people. You love to communicate.
Yeah.
And you really fill in the disc openings that we have as a leadership team, like myself as a high DI, Janir is a high DI.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to HR, while we are excellent at it, you came along at the right time and it was time to just bring somebody in to kind of let go of that role for both of us.
And that empathy factor is huge in HR. Like, I think that's definitely something that a lot of us lack. Like, I'm high ID, so I have very low empathy. So it's it's definitely a necessity in an HR role.
Yeah.
So we knew it was the right fit. I didn't have any hand in hiring you. Janira came in and was like, I found the HR person, which I was like, awesome, bring her in. You just finished, I think, 120 days. Are you close to that?
Well, definitely past my 90 days, that's for sure.
Yep.
You've been with us for so long, I feel like at this point.
It feels like forever because she kind of just fell into the fold. You were right on the leadership team immediately because to the extent that I think you're wise beyond your years. How old are you?
I am 27.
Right. So you're a youngin', but you're very serious about your career. You're very accomplished. You're very much an embodiment of the core values, and you're constantly looking to add to your skill set at what you do, which is awesome because it then just frees us up to do the other stuff, right?
Right.
So the HR skill set that I've observed with you where you're really excelling is that communication and interpersonal skills, but also you are showing very strong indications of leadership and management skills and strategic thinking to the extent, like even the feedback you gave today at the leadership meeting, and we won't talk about the specifics, but it was really well thought out and very proactive. You were coming to me with, this is what I want to do from an HR perspective, not coming to me, engineer, like, give me the answers. What do I need to do? So that's really valuable. And again, that just goes to show you, like, age is just a number. Now I've got you who's, what'd you say, 25?
27.
27. And Jules is 25?
24.
24. I'm going to get it right one of these days. But you guys are both on the leadership team because, quite honestly, age is just a number. So I've had people 35 and 45 that are not showing the mindset that Jules showed in one of her comments today, right? That was a different mindset she revealed, and she did it instinctively because of the work she's been doing. And even the stuff that you did, it wasn't coaxed out of you. It was natural because you've been working so hard, right? I think yesterday, which was Labor Day, you were sending me texts about a class discovery that you made on, I think it's SHRM. Is it SHRM that you're doing the training or the ALA?
This is actually just something I was looking at on my own.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it came across,
Gotcha. Yeah. So listen, again, I love getting those text messages because I'm like, okay, this is somebody who's really looking to kind of put their money where their mouth is from a terms of investing time, investing their own money capital, time capital into themselves, right? And that's why I think both of you are exceeding very quickly where most people wouldn't be at that point. So in the HR that you did prior to coming here, you were very heavy in recruiting.
Yes.
Right? When you said you didn't want that to be the be all and end all, what was your overarching goal in coming here to TonaLaw?
Honestly, I love the employee relation aspect of HR. I really enjoy being that mediator when it comes to problem solving and just being the person that team members come to when it's related to an issue. I really enjoyed that in my time at the urgent care, and that's something that I didn't get to experience, obviously, when I was recruiting, but I knew that recruiting was an aspect of HR that I did want to excel in, that I did want more experience in.
Yeah, and so one of the reasons why I had the epiphany to even do this series is so many people that I talk to, whether it's LinkedIn, masterminds, or anything else, are talking about how challenging they are finding hiring for their law firms. And I'm like, I don't know, we just hired 4 key hires in one 30-day period, and they were all great.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean we don't have hiccups, but what I realize is there's things you're doing behind the scenes that I don't even realize that you're doing them as well as you are, and you've taken it upon yourself to do them, and that's what's yielding those results, right? So let's break that down. We have an HR system, and that's why I want to kind of isolate the different parts of that these systems for anybody that's listening. So get your pens and your pads out or your digital devices and start taking notes on the system. The first step of our system is recruiting, right? So this topic is going to be what we cover for the balance of this episode today, and then we'll go over something else in the next episode. So let's talk about what recruiting means to you and be very specific about our system. Before you run out and make a hire, there's work that goes into it, right? You, myself, Janira, and the department's heads will sit down and say, hey, we need to do a review. So step one is
the staff assessment.
A staff assessment. Okay. Staff assessment's a tool that was given to us by Patrick Wilson. And what it does is it's a 3-column spreadsheet, and it's basically a breakdown of somebody's 40-hour week, right?
Right.
So you list all of the tasks that person does, right? You list the amount of time they do it in a 40-hour week, and then how much they love that task from a scale from 1 to 10, right? Am I missing anything so far on it?
No.
Okay. So expand on that. Why is that important, and why is this the initial step?
Yeah, so it's important because you don't want the one individual who's doing the job responsibilities to feel burnt out. If they are doing their job and it's more than a 40-hour week, then it's a telltale sign that it's time to expand and hire another person. It also helps when it comes to seeing the work product someone gives out, in the sense that, are they doing what they need to do in a 40-hour work week? Can they be doing more, or should they be doing less?
Yeah, and I think it's a very valuable tool and one that we rely on very heavily. And I think what's also very important about it is the rating of a scale from 1 to 10 about their passion for that task, right? So, for instance, Jules, pick a task that you do in your job.
Our social media scheduling.
Okay, social media scheduling. How many hours a week do you do that task?
At least 10 hours a week.
Okay. So that's 25% of a given week. How much do you love it on a scale from 1 to 10?
This is tough because I do really
Just give me a
love
number.
it. I do.
Just give me a number.
I would say a high 8.5 out of 10.
You love doing that. What that also does, that staff assessment, is it allows us to look at everything you do. And because you're a high I, you might rate everything an 8.5 or a 10.
Oh my God, everything's 9 at least.
You can't possibly do all of these things. And what Alesha was saying is, if you're showing us an 80-hour week in a 40-hour bucket, well, clearly we need another body here. And even if you love it at an 8.5, we're going to take it off of you if it's not your highest best use.
I know.
Right?
It's tough to split with those things.
Right. But that's how we build out these divisions, right? That's how we started making hires overseas for people to take over tasks off of you, off of Alesha, et cetera. And we did that with Alesha very quickly because she was drowning in resumes. right?
I know. She made 4 hires in her first 90 days, was it?
So step 1, staff assessment. Now you've determined, okay, infrastructure is too tight. Second step is crafting a job description, right? Why is that important?
Because you need a proper description of the job when presenting it to potential candidates.
Right. Well, look, how can you find what you're looking for if you don't put on paper what it is you're looking for, right? So the job description is pivotal and you have to take time to do it. And that process, so the staff assessment can take anywhere from a day to a week for us to get to if we're working very quickly through it. We meet with that team member. Then the job description crafting, that's a whole thing onto itself, right? Because we have to delineate experience, education, the tasks we want done.
Right.
What else? What else are we looking for in the job description?
The skill set, soft skills, hard skills, overall experience, what their education is, pretty much everything.
And we use assessments.
Yes.
So we're going to create an avatar basically with this job description of our ideal candidate, and we match up a disc to it, right?
Right.
We typically will look at some of the rock stars we already have here. So like if I'm looking for another marketing coordinator, or let's say social media coordinator to work under you, Jules, I would look at your disc and say, well, what is ideal for this position? What kind of experience do we want? How many years of experience? And then we will actually research the different levels, the different job levels in a given field. So like if it's marketing, we'll look at the different levels that exist in marketing and then come up with a title, right? But we don't start with the title. We do the job description and then we look at what are the titles out there for these jobs, right?
Right.
Okay. And then what do you do if we don't have a job description? Where would you look for that as a resource in terms of building out a job description?
Well, as of recent, I've been using SHRM just because I do have a lot of different job descriptions for any field out there.
What's SHRM?
SHRM is the Society of Human Resource Management.
Okay, you're a member of that.
Correct.
Okay. And in addition to SHRM, is there anything else, anywhere else that your research takes you?
Yeah, just in general using, Google for different job descriptions. I do like LinkedIn because obviously there are a lot of reputable companies that are on LinkedIn that do have pretty descriptive job descriptions that I can use to kind of piecemeal my own job description.
Step 3.
Creating an ad.
All right, creating the ad. So let's go back for 1 second. I don't give you enough credit in this area. I know you're writing a lot of this stuff with the stuff you know and you're excellent at, and you've probably rewritten all of our ads, even though I'm like, hey, don't worry about it. We have an ad for an attorney. We have an ad for this. What the hell are you doing that you got the type of action you've gotten out of the 4 recent hires you made in a 30-day period? Like you're doing something special with these ads. What is it in the ad writing process that you're doing?
You got to just grab their attention. Something that the candidate will see out of the whole job description, because more often than not, candidates are not reading the entire thing. But there have to be certain, buzzwords that jump out to them. Be like, all right, yeah, I've done this, or this is something I'm interested in doing. Also having some type of idea with the benefits. That's definitely something that's picking up, especially after COVID. A lot of companies are putting their benefits right out there for potential candidates to see to attract quality candidates.
And in addition, if I can add one thing, I still see companies that are not putting salaries on
New York City, you're required to.
The jobs. It's ridiculous to me because since that so one of the things that's been interesting to me about COVID and the Great Resignation in general is it cured me of so many different concerns on the HR front to the extent of I was like that law firm. I didn't want to put salary levels. Mm-hmm. Well, I was like, why not? We're paying top of the scale. I do my homework, and we'll talk about that research we do in the compensation section, but I do my homework, and I know we compensate well. Yeah. Why would I not want to put the range out there, right? And so, yeah, I agree with you. In addition to pay, you put all the benefits out that you offer, right? Anything else that you would say you got to have in a job description that you think is critical? Because, dude, whatever you're doing, the results I've seen from you, your stuff when it comes to recruiting. Let me tell you.
Yeah, it's more like painting a picture for them. You want to have the candidate think of themselves in that role. When they're able to see themselves in that role, they're more inclined to apply, even if they're a little qualified, not fully. If they're able to see themselves in the role, then it's, they're more likely to apply.
I love that. That's awesome. That's gold. Okay, so after the ad, what's the next step? Step 4.
Step 4 is, I know we touched on this, but getting an understanding of what the best disc is for this candidate.
Okay. I've talked about the disc a lot.
Yeah.
And people are like, I want you to help me with this. Give me the name of the company. And I'm like, me giving you the person who provides a disc is like me handing a scalpel to Juliet. She could perform surgery on me, but it's probably not the best idea. Right? So one of the things I think that, we've been using the disc for like 10 years, right? So we know the disc.
Yeah.
You have had a crash course in discology with myself, Janira, and Patrick. And Jules, you've seen it play out firsthand too. So anybody that's writing these steps down, you want to get an understanding of the required disc for the position. Essential. We order different ones for attorneys and leadership than we do for non-attorneys and non-leadership. But you also got to get an understanding of how to use the disc in general, right? And that requires a coach. Like, even if it's just a short-term coach, 90 days, you want a crash course on how to use a disc for hiring. But yeah, I have found it to be a very surgical process, right? If I tell you this is the position, we go out, this is the disc we're looking for, look at the hire you made on our intake person, Penelope.
Right.
I mean, unbelievable.
Amazing. All the candidates that we've hired, everyone that we've hired, they've all been amazing. I think the disc has really streamlined the whole process for me, just to, even if someone is decent on paper and, I like them on the phone interview, but if the disc doesn't align, that's straight personality. That's like who they are. If their essence is not aligning what they're looking to do in day to day, it's not going to work out long term.
So
and just to, sorry, go ahead.
I actually do have a question. How do you notice a difference in the recruitment process working in the medical field versus here where we do use a disc test?
100%.
So I assume you haven't used it before.
Yeah.
Right?
This is the first time, obviously, using it or experiencing it. And when it comes to healthcare, and honestly, I don't know if this is something you're going to include in the podcast, but
we'll include it. I know what you're going to say.
Yeah. So I feel like with healthcare, it's
they just need warm bodies.
They just need a person to
makes me feel good about going to the hospital.
do the job. That's how it was, and especially during COVID, it was crazy.
Free for all.
Yeah. So that's the interview process. If you're able to do a blood draw, if you're able to do the basics within a healthcare facility, then sure, you're hired. Doesn't matter if you are a toxic person. Doesn't matter if you have underlying issues and like mentally, whatever. It could be anything. But as long as you can do the job, you're fine.
I really have enjoyed watching you grow. Even like you were great at recruiting. When you came here, you were great at recruiting. But to watch you grow into it now where you're using these tools and you're like, the lights are going off. And I think in the beginning, you kind of poo-pooed it a little bit. You kind of were like...
It's all over the place.
You were like, I don't know if I'm buying this whole disc thing. But you now see, 100 days into the process, you've seen it play out, right?
100%, yeah.
It's like magical.
Because you're right. It's like who the person is.
Yeah.
And, we spend most of our time in the office. So if
Around
you're not getting
people,
along with your coworkers, it's going to be miserable.
Understand, too, the reliability and predictability that comes from the disc is, I think Patrick Wilson has said basically 85%. Right? You're still going to have that 15% wild card.
Right.
You're still going to have a failure ratio on new hires, but it lessens it. It makes things way more predictable when you're able to line up discs. Like you made a hire for our settlement negotiator position that opened up, and man, the stars were just in alignment.
Yeah.
It was our first interview, and it's 100% great. Like it's been a great out of the gate first 30 days.
Yeah.
Same thing for all the hires that you made, like really just been awesome. The legal assistant position, all of them recently in the last 30 days.
Everybody's been so amazing and like fitting in so well.
But I also think it goes back to what TonaLaw is looking for, right? We're also looking for individuals who do have experience. And, in reality, we're not, I don't know if you're going to add this, but in reality that we're a firm that is established and we're looking to have people join the team that are more established.
For me also, I think the number one thing I look for is character and alignment with core values. Skills can be taught.
Right.
As long as the disc is in alignment with what we think the primary needs are of the position. Right. And again, we'll talk more about the culture and the core values and that stuff and how to create it in later episodes. But we are crystal clear in our vision of what this team should look like going forward, right? We all have a shared vision where we sit around a meeting table at EOS and we're all kind of sharing the same vision of what we want for a certain position before we even crystallize it, right? Like we'll write it down and we all have the same vision. Okay, so we've gone through steps 1 through 4. Let's go to step 5. What's the next step?
This is kind of wrapping it all together, post the actual job.
Okay. So we're posting a job ad. Where primarily are we posting the ads? Because I know people are always asking that question.
So we mainly use LinkedIn and Indeed. We also like to keep the connections in person and use word of mouth as well.
Okay. So let's also talk about that, because for anybody listening to this, they're like, all right, I'm going to post my job on LinkedIn, right? And then they're going to circulate it to their 4 followers and connections and wonder why they're not getting any action on it. So little cheat code that I'm going to expand on in a different series called LinkedIn Marketing for Lawyers is I just told Will and Darby this in a conversation over lunch. I said, before you put out content, spend 12 to 18 months building connections, right? And I built those connections on LinkedIn. I think I was up to 7,500 connections before I ever posted a single post.
And we continue building those
And we continue building those connections daily. But now I have 8,500, 8,800 connections, predominantly lawyers, paralegals, legal assistants, law-related tangential fields, and anybody that I look to hire, right? I use LinkedIn in a multifaceted way. One of them is recruiting, right? But now it's much easier when I say, oh, Alesha, is that ad done? Yeah, it's done. You send it to Jules. Now I put it on my profile, right? And that gets in front of 8,500 people that are top of mind aware of us. They know our culture because we compound the effect of social media everywhere.
We post it all over the place.
When you say, when you say LinkedIn, I think what we have built is this culture. And then what we did was we just put it out everywhere. This is who we are. It's what we stand for. And there's no faking it. It's really who we are. So what's awesome to see now is people already feel like they know us. People come to us, they know what to expect, and they're not applying if they don't fit with our alignment on the core values, right? If they don't fit with our core values, they're not even putting the computer on, which is good. That's what I want.
And it's so fun when everybody in the office, like when new people come in and they're like, oh, I actually saw you guys on TikTok and Instagram. Like Anna, for instance, she's like, my son loved you guys before I even came in. So it's definitely adds to bringing people in and posting our culture.
And one of the things that we do at the 90-day review, I think at every review, interim, we do these interim reviews after the hire is made, is we say, is there anything that we've put out that we didn't deliver on? And not one person has ever said, yeah, you guys are full of crap. Right? No, because
it's true.
How much time do you, me, engineers spend behind closed doors working on HR and the culture of this firm?
A lot of time.
I mean, I spend as much time as I spend on marketing with Jules, I spend on HR and culture with you. I see the two of you more than I see anybody, including my wife half the time.
Sorry, Jen.
So when people are writing down step 5, posting your job ad, it's not as simple as going to LinkedIn. You know, it's the same as if you're promoting a podcast. There's people that I follow and I'm connected to, and they're promoting a podcast and they get like 1 view. Because they haven't spent time building up the community. They just want to ask things of people, right? So I look at LinkedIn as marketing to potential hires, right? Hiring itself to me is marketing the law firm because people can choose to work anywhere. So posting the job ad is step 5. Now the resumes start coming in, right?
All the resumes.
I mean, you had a couple of jobs. We posted one job. Which one was the one that got like 100 resumes overnight?
In a 3-day period, I got 107 resumes. That was for the remote intake specialist role.
Okay. The remote intake specialist role. So 107 resumes. Is that the job where we had the issue where you couldn't even get to them and we had to repost it? Okay. That just cost $3,000. But it's okay. It's fine.
Packet change.
What we were able to do is grow from that, right? What I realized is at the point that I'm at now, I was like, all right, let's take a look at the big picture here. Is it an Alesha thing, or is it a complete overwhelm thing of looking at 4 different jobs at once and then trying to manage that? So from a logistics standpoint, I was like, stop. You need some help. Let's get you a international team member over in the Philippines who her specific job will be to help cull the resumes down to a manageable top 10, top 20 type of space. So we came up with a system. What was the system for training your international team member under you to go through 107 resumes as quickly as possible? Because speed is still the name of the game, I think, on the recruiting side, right?
100%. Yeah. People don't, in reality, recruiters don't really spend more than a few minutes on one resume. So
what was the system that you came up with?
Yeah. So the system we had created was, and I kind of just made it up before this, but the system we created was a green, yellow, and red system. The green candidates would have about 2 to 3 requirements that made them a perfect candidate. So for example, when we were looking to hire for the settlement negotiator, they needed at least, I want to say about 10 years experience.
Correct.
With bodily injury claims.
Correct.
Experience.
Correct. And plaintiff's firm experience.
Right. So that was considered the perfect candidate. That was a green candidate. A yellow candidate had about 1 to 2 things that were required. So I'll go back to the settlement negotiator role. They needed at least 5 years, I would say, of...
Yes.
How do you say it? Insurance, bodily injury claims experience? Is that the right word to say it?
Sure, bodily injury claims experience or insurance adjusting experience.
Yeah, so they needed insurance adjusting experience, specifically in bodily injury. And a red candidate had no experience at all with an insurance company or in PI. So they were just totally disqualified at that point.
Okay. And you taught this to the international team member, and then she started executing on it. Mm-hmm. And what happened?
It just streamlined the whole process of reviewing resumes. It cut down the time, I want to say in half. I was able to get through so many more resumes just by this process, yes.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Listen, for anybody that's listening to this, and people do listen and people do write to me and say, look, I took so much away from that. This system works, right? I tasked you with finding me 4 hires in a 30-day period, and you did. And that's like... I was like, we got to tell people about this because it does work. You hire the international team member. Again, we have a system for that. That's a whole nother system, but we put somebody in place relatively quickly. You train them on the task you wanted done. Right. And it's funny because you pushed back a little bit when I said, look, let's get you somebody. Let's get you some help. And you're like, no, because most of my high performers, that's their initial response. It happened with Janira. It's happened with paralegals. It happened with Juliet. Everybody says, no, I don't want help because they take that as a sign of failure.
Because we like to think we could do it all.
Yeah.
But it's not a sign of failure, right? Think about how I was able to expand on your time by freeing you up with an international team member who could go through red, yellow, green. Why would I want you going through red and yellow resumes? It's a waste of your time. Give you 10 green, and you literally you made hires super quick. So you do the green, yellow, red. What's the next step in the system after you have 10 people that you like, let's say? Right. What's the next step?
The phone interview.
Yeah, it is. Did you write that down?
I did not.
I know. I'm just winging it now with you. All right. So the phone interview. The phone interview consists of 10 questions?
Yeah, about 10 questions, just weeding out what their experience is, kind of getting their gauge on what their timeline is as well.
Right. And those 10 questions that we ask are very purposeful, full of intent, and they reveal a lot of questions of, will this person be a match for the next step, right? The next step being the DISC.
Right, the DISC.
So we won't even administer the DISC until we've done the phone interview to see if there's a good fit between us and the candidate. Yeah. And if there is, then we'll ask them, hey, do you want to take a DISC, right?
Correct.
I have a question. What happens if somebody says they don't want to take the DISC? Does that automatically disqualify?
But most people, I've never had.
I wonder if
the occasion.
One person in the last 30 people that I've talked to who said, I'm not taking it. And I was like, okay, I wish you the best of luck.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. I can't imagine having somebody here and not knowing like their personality.
Yeah.
It's just not something we'll ever do.
Yeah.
It's not something we'll ever do. So, okay, so you do the phone interviews, then we meet and we go through it. What's the next step?
Interview them.
Right. And the interview, just so we can be clear, because we've kind of developed these parameters together, but it's a 2-hour interview every single time. It's not going to be less. It's going to be an hour and a half of us asking questions and dialoguing with the candidate, and then giving them about a half an hour to ask us whatever they want, correct?
Correct.
All right. So if you have any tips for anybody in terms of finding an ideal candidate or the interview process, any words of wisdom for anybody that's listening? Well, conversely, if you're a job candidate and you're interviewing at TonaLaw, what's some advice you would give somebody who's interviewing?
Right. I mean, I think I would just go off, prepare. That's the biggest thing.
Boom.
You need to prepare.
Write that down, people.
Prepare what the job is looking for, prepare what you have experienced, and be prepared to talk about that, elaborate on it, be able to give real life examples of how you've done XYZ in your resume. Also, know what the company or firm does. You'd be surprised by how many people show up to interviews.
I wouldn't be surprised. I know.
I'm surprised at times, not going to lie.
So I'll tell you, I was reading something on Reddit, because now I've jumped into that rabbit hole of social media. So person wrote on Reddit, hey, I'm a seasoned paralegal. I showed up for a job interview. 2 partners were supposed to interview me. One guy shows up 20 minutes late. He was at lunch, was not apologetic at all. And the other one barely had anything prepared, right? And overwhelmingly, you had 2 schools. One, you could tell were the old school partners in law firms, I'm using air quotes, that were like, well, you got to understand how important we are. And then I jump in and I'm like, that is a bunch of horse shit. And here's why. Nobody's time is more important than the other person. And a seasoned paralegal is in high demand. And my role, or your role, Alesha, or your role if you're hiring somebody, Juliet, if you're going to be doing it with Alesha, is you owe it to that candidate to be on time to the minute, unless there's a real emergency. And if there is, you, out of courtesy, explain yourself and then be prepared. That preparation that you're talking about, Alesha, is a 2-way street, right? So I read everybody's resume. I look at everything, and you could see the look on their face when they're like, oh, wait, you know the name of the firm that I worked at? Like, because nobody's even reading their resumes at job interviews. And then people like hiring so hard. No, put some freaking effort into it, right? You're laughing, but there's a reason why it's not hard for us. I'm like, I got this rock star HR generalist. We have a system for every step of HR, which is what we're sharing on this platform. And we do our homework. We put a lot of work into it. So it's not hard. It's that people, A, either don't know what to do or aren't doing what they need to do on the HR front. Of course, it's going to be hard. I see job ads where people are looking for seasoned people and offering entry-level salaries. Of course, you're having a hard time finding people. You're looking for something that doesn't exist. You got to pay people what they're worth. Do your homework. There's a ton of data out there on it. We'll talk about how to set compensation bands at a law firm and stuff in a later episode. But to that end, preparation is number one, and it's for both. It's for the recruiting interviewer and for the candidate. It's the same advice. Prepare. Do your homework. Don't wait. My one tip would be don't wait until you need to hire to prepare to recruit. Meaning, I spent 12 to 18 months building out a LinkedIn profile that was targeted so that when I was going to run an ad, I knew who I wanted to see it. And I paid for a higher level of LinkedIn and I invested in that. And I knew it would get me in front of the eyeballs I wanted. It's no different than marketing for cases. It's the same thing. I went to Patrick about 10 years ago and I was like, look, man, I hate human resources. And he said, I would challenge your mindset that it's not that you hate it. No one ever taught it to you and you don't know it. And so anybody that tuned into this because they hate human resources or they feel like they suck at it, you probably do suck at it, but you weren't taught it. Hear me out. You don't get taught this stuff in law school, which is why law school is so deficient in how they train us, right? They don't train you to run your law firm like a business. Be a good lawyer. Everything will be taken care of. That's not true. And they don't teach you business skills like hiring, training, onboarding, all of these different things.
Yeah.
10 years invested with Patrick on coaching, on culture, on human resources, evolved into the culture we have now. And I love it. And I think it's the most important thing, the single most important thing you can do for a law firm. Because without the people, nothing gets done.
Right.
Right? So when you get to that pain point that you were talking about, Jules, of 20, 25 team members, that was probably a little late in the game to bring you in.
Yeah.
When would you recommend a law firm seriously start to consider a human resources person?
When you need someone to mediate between the management team and the regular team members.
Explain that. What do you mean mediate? Advocate for the team members? Or?
Advocate, but also just be present for them.
Okay.
It's a time thing. It's if you don't have the time to be present for them, then you need someone who is designated for that.
And I think that was a huge pain point here for a little bit.
Yeah, because Janira and I just didn't have the time.
You guys were just spread too thin.
Yeah.
And then we were like,
how many? Okay, we're going to talk about two more things and then we'll wrap it up. How many HR Slacks do you get a day? Or, Google Chats. How many HR pings do you get a day?
I would say it's like 5 to 15 a day.
A day. That's why we have Alesha.
yeah,
here.
poor Janira was like getting 15 pings from you.
50 pings from me.
Probably closer to
Hell
100 pings from Tom.
Yeah.
15 from team members.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for anybody that's listening to this, if you have crossed 14 people, seriously consider making one of your next hires human resources. Because if you want to grow, that is a way to grow. You have helped us grow tremendously, and thank you for that.
Of course.
Your disc is ideal. So if you're looking for an HR generalist in your law firm, you want somebody with a high IS. They're very empathetic. They're people, and they're great communicators, and they're diplomats, right? Alesha's very diplomatic. And so she's a problem solver, and she's an overall miracle worker in my mind, because I know how challenging that position is. Okay, last nugget of wisdom that we kind of stumbled upon is we see a lot of people asking about payroll companies and systems. Who did we switch from? Who did we go to? And give them your feedback on our current vendor.
Yeah. So previously, TonaLaw was using ADP. I don't have a lot of firsthand experience on this. When I joined the firm, I started off with using Paylocity. So, I've have really good things to say about Paylocity. I think it's great. I think there's a lot of different features. Recruiting, performance, the payroll, time and labor aspects, even learning. We were able to have the anti-harassment training done directly on Paylocity. So it's definitely a one-stop shop for anything HR related.
Yeah, and it's a full one-stop shop, right? Like you have everything you need there. And again, that was one of the reasons we brought you in, because I knew I wanted a full HR platform, but nothing was going to get done on that without you. So that was another thing you did, was the implementation of Paylocity. And that was a colossal project you took on in 100 days. Like you had a robust 100 days.
Yeah.
All new hires, a couple of turnovers. I think we had a couple of terminations, which we'll cover in another episode as well, and implementation of a new system. So you took on a lot. And thank you for that, because you did a really masterful job.
You've been a rock star.
Yeah, you've been a great addition to the team. So if we were going to call this episode anything, it would be Human Resources for Law Firms. And I will sum it up with this, and I did it in another episode, but not everybody's going to have an Alesha, but everybody needs an Alesha. And let me tell you, because of you, we've been able to scale in a really high momentum way. And that you're a key part of that. And thank you for that. So
thank you so much.
It's been great having you on.
So this was the first installment of the HR series that we're going to be doing for law firms. And I hope you guys enjoyed it and ladies enjoyed it. And I hope that you derived a lot of value from it. Alesha's got a ton of knowledge and in-depth expertise in this space. So we're going to have her on next. The next episode is going to be onboarding and the importance of proper onboarding. It really was a huge, huge discovery to realize that there's a whole nother world that comes after recruiting. Recruiting is just step one. And that really was directly related to your start. So thank you for listening to the Lead Counsel Podcast. You can find us wherever podcasts are distributed. Please share this with some of your lawyer friends or doctor friends or family members that you think might benefit from it. And if you're so inclined, leave us a 5-star review wherever you hear these podcasts.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.